What did you make of Theresa May's address? Because not everyone is happy that she's delaying this vote.
Absolutely, and I ought to add that for me it's not clear if it is actually going to be able to be delayed and until what date, but we can come to that in a moment. On the substance of what she said, this to me is quite a different speech from what we've heard from Theresa May. She's been very much on the same sort of a script ever since this withdrawal agreement was struck, saying about how it protects jobs and security of the UK, etc. She did repeat some of those messages, but she was seeming to say now, look, this is a much tougher tone, I think, really, that we were hearing from her. She was saying that she has no doubt this deal is the right one, but also stepping outside of that a bit more and saying, does this House want to deliver Brexit? Do these members of Parliament who would be voting on the deal actually want to honour the result of that referendum in 2016, which, as we know, was tight, but ended up 52% in favour of leaving the EU? That seemed to be sort of somewhat laying down the gauntlet to the House of Commons. The vote that was due to happen tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. UK time, it did look like Theresa May was going to lose that by around about 200 MPs, an absolutely massive defeat for her. So she was on course for that, but she's sort of been giving some fighting talk here, saying, look, a lot of you aren't happy about the provisions for a backstop to avoid a hard border on the island of Ireland, the provisions that are in the deal, but this backstop is an inescapable fact. And she also, that seemed to be, to me, talking directly to the DUP, the Northern Irish Unionist Party that's had a deal with Theresa May's Conservatives and had been supporting her up until this deal actually came out. She's been talking as well about protecting the union of the United Kingdom and really seeming to say, I'm the person who's trying to keep this country together constitutionally, all of its constituent parts. If you vote against my deal, then you are going to be the ones that are breaking up the UK.
Catherine, we have a soundbite of Theresa May, which we're going to listen to now.
Many of the most controversial aspects of this deal, including the backstop, are simply inescapable facts of having a negotiated Brexit. Those members who continue to disagree need to shoulder the responsibility of advocating an alternative solution that can be delivered, and do so without ducking its implications. So if you want a second referendum to overturn the result of the first, be honest that this risks dividing the country again, when as a House we should be striving to bring it back together.
Okay, that was Theresa May saying that it's the House of Commons, as you said, who really needs to unite the people. Now, she spoke. We also had Jeremy Corbyn who spoke and accused the Prime Minister of going to Brussels, or who will probably go to Brussels in the coming days and coming back with the same botched deal, which risks happening because the European Union has said, look, this is it.
Absolutely. It's not just today that we've been hearing that from the EU voices. On the day that the withdrawal agreement was announced and at the following summit where the European Council, the heads of state, actually rubber-stamped the deal, everybody was saying this is the only deal that's available. It is the best deal that could have been negotiated. Theresa May said that just a couple of minutes ago as well. There are going to be no changes to this deal. And just a reminder to our viewers that there are two aspects to what the government has come up with, along with the European Commission. There's the withdrawal agreement, that absolutely massive document. It's the legally binding text that would, be about how
pages,
the UK leaves exactly legally. There's also the 26-page, I think, political declaration, which is not legally binding. It's a sort of a statement of intent of this is the kind of relationship we want the EU in the future. There could be changes to that. However, the backstop, the Irish backstop, is not in that document. The Irish backstop is in the withdrawal agreement. The Irish Prime Minister, speaking a little earlier on, again, repeating that same message, this is not negotiable. And also, Leo Varadkar saying, if you did want to reopen negotiations, you're reopening all the negotiations on every aspect, not just on the Irish backstop.
Now, we also had the Speaker of the House, John Bercow, who spoke, and he was interested interesting what he said, because he said if this vote is deferred, it would be discourteous because there was that debate that was held on the Brexit vote itself.
That's right. The UK government had scheduled 5 days of debate on this vote, ahead of this vote. So today was actually supposed to be beginning more or less now, day 4 of 5 of those votes. It was supposed to be about business, economic aspects as well coming up, and then the vote tomorrow evening. Of course, this is a parliament. There's parliamentary procedure that has to be followed. As soon as we heard very strong hints, let's say this afternoon, that this vote was going to be postponed, questions were raised. Is this possible? How would it work? John Bercow basically saying that there are 2 ways of doing this. One would be essentially the government bulldozing it through, and another way would be to follow some more formal procedure. And like you said, he made extremely strong hint that he believes that there is one way that would be acceptable. The House of Parliament is absolutely up in arms about this Brexit vote. There's been talk about a no confidence vote being brought in the government of Theresa May. That would have to be brought by the opposition Labour Party. Nicola Sturgeon, who is the Scottish First Minister and the leader of all of those Scottish MPs who are so against this deal and Brexit in general, she said a little earlier that she would support the Labour Party in a no confidence vote in the government. It's a vote like that that would bring about a general election in the UK. Perhaps that's a subject for another time about where that would lead us.
A lot of hints there calling for May's head, essentially. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, there were shouts while she was speaking of resign. I also ought to mention as well that while all this has been going on, of course, the currency markets have continued trading. Pound sterling has continued its slide against the euro and against the dollar.
Unsurprising, with all this uncertainty.